Hey, aren't we the most exceptional nation in history? George Bush and his pals thought so, and they were in a great American tradition of exceptionalism. Of course, they were imagining us as the most exceptional empire in history, or maybe at the end of it. The ultimate new Rome. Anyway, explain this to me. Among all the exceptional things we claim to do, how come we never take credit for what may be the most exceptional of all, our success of successes, the thing that makes us uniquely ourselves on this war-ridden planet, peddling more arms to earthlings than anyone else in the neighborhood? Why do we hide this rare talent under a bushel? In the interest of shining a proud light on an underrated national skill, I asked Frida Berrigan to return the United States to its rightful place in the pantheon of arms-dealing nations. They don't call us the sole superpower for nothing. Paul Wolfowitz might be looking for a new job right now, but the term he used to describe the pervasiveness of U.S. might back when he was a mere Deputy Secretary of Defense, hyperpower, still fits the bill. Face it, the United States is a proud nation of firsts. Among them, first in oil consumption. The United States burns up 20.7 million barrels per day, the equivalent of the oil consumption of China, Japan, Germany, Russia, and India combined. First in carbon dioxide emissions. Each year, world polluters pump 24,126,416,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide into the environment. The United States and its territories are responsible for 5.8 billion metric tons of this, more than China, 3.3 billion, Russia, 1.4 billion, and India, 1.2 billion combined. First in external debt. The United States owes $10.040 trillion, nearly a quarter of the global debt total of $44 trillion. First in military expenditures. The White House has requested $481 billion for the Department of Defense for 2008, but this huge figure does not come close to representing total U.S. military expenditures projected for the coming year. To get a sense of the resources allocated to the military, the cost of the global war on terrorism, of the building, refurbishing, or maintaining of the U.S. nuclear arsenal, and other expenses also need to be factored in. Military analyst Winslow Wheeler did the math recently. Add $142 billion to cover the anticipated cost of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Add $17 billion requested for nuclear weapons costs in the Department of Energy. Add another $5 billion for miscellaneous defense costs in other agencies, and you get a grand total of $647 billion for 2008. Taking another approach to the use of U.S. resources, Columbia University economist Joseph Stiglitz and Harvard Business School lecturer Linda Bilmes added to known costs of the war in Iraq invisible costs like its impact on global oil prices, as well as the long-term cost of health care for wounded veterans, and came up with a price tag of between $1 trillion and $2.2 trillion. If we turned what the United States will spend on the military in 2008 into small bills, we could give each one of the world's more than 1 billion teenagers and young adults an Xbox 360 with wireless controller, power supply in remote rural areas not included, and 2 video games to play. Maybe Gears of War and Command and Conquer would be appropriate. But if we're committed to fighting obesity, maybe Dance, Dance, Dance Revolution would be a better bet. The United States alone spends what the rest of the world combined devotes to military expenditures. First in weapons sales. Since 2001, U.S. global military sales have normally totaled between 10 and 13 billion. That's a lot of weapons, But in fiscal year 2006, the Pentagon broke its own recent record, inking arms sales agreements worth $21 billion. It almost goes without saying that this is significantly more than any other nation in the world. In this gold medal tally of firsts, there can be no question that things that go bang in the night are our proudest products. No one makes more of them or sells them more effectively than we do. When it comes to the sorts of firsts that once went with a classic civilian manufacturing base, however, gold medals are in short supply. To take an example, not first in automobiles. Once, Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford ruled the domestic and global roost, setting the standard for the automotive industry. Not anymore. In 2006, the U.S. imported almost $150 billion more in vehicles and auto parts than it sent abroad. Automotive analyst Joe Barker told the Boston Globe it's a very tough environment for the so-called Detroit Three.
In times of softening demand, consumers typically will look to brands that they trust and rely on. Consumers trust and rely on Japanese brands.
The Department of Commerce recently announced total March exports of $126.2 billion and total imports of $190.1 billion, resulting in a goods and services deficit of $63.9 billion. This is a $6 billion increase over February. But why be gloomy? Stick with arms sales, and it's dawn in America every day of the year. Sometimes, the weapons industry pretends that it's like any other trade, especially when it's pushing our congressional representatives, as it always does, for fewer restrictions and regulations. But don't be fooled. Arms aren't automobiles or refrigerators. They are the way the USA can always be number one, and everyone wants them. The odds that in your lifetime there will ever be a $128 billion trade deficit in weapons are essentially nil. Arms are our real gold medal event.